This is by far the weirdest commander deck that I've ever built. An actual clown as a commander, and it is built on a €25 budget, which in most places is just the price of one collector booster pack. Let me introduce you to the Jolly Balloon Man. For the low cost of 3 mana, we get a 1/4 human clown. The 4 toughness is actually really relevant and makes him dodge some damage-based board wipes, or lightning bolt. Our clown himself has haste, which means we're instantly allowed to use his ability whenever we decide to play him. And the ability is where this card gets absolutely crazy. He might seem like a bit of a meme, but he is a really strong commander. For just 1 mana and tapping the Jolly Balloon Man, we're allowed to create a token copy of a creature we control. The creature token will be a 1/1 red balloon with flying and haste. The balloon token will retain any ability of the creature we copied. This means the balloon copies will also have the same enter the battlefield triggers, attack triggers, death triggers. The balloon tokens do have a downside. They have to be sacrificed at the end of our turn. Since we run a ton of death trigger creatures, it doesn't matter and we use this to our own benefit, actually gaining value from it. The ability can only be used on sorcery speed. In our deck, it's not a problem. We mainly rely on ETB triggers and attack triggers anyway, so it's perfectly fine. He is in Boros colors, which honestly is not my favorite color pair, since we don't have access to ramp, don't have access to that much interaction. But in this deck, we make it work. Trust me. Red gives us access to really aggressive ETB triggers, allowing us to steal creatures, ping damage, and with white we get access to a lot of artifact removal, enchantment removal, even some graveyard recursion. Boros is the perfect color combination for this type of deck. Even though we are on a €25 budget, we do play some infinite combos. We don't play tutors to get them, so you will just have to get lucky to pull these off. But still, if you draw the right cards, you can just win the game outright. As per usual, I will be going in depth in every single card in the deck and explaining why I decided to include it. The video is divided up in 7 categories: the utility and value creatures, the finishers and threats, acceleration cards, interaction, the lands, a combo section where I will be explaining the combos in this deck, an upgrade section where I will be mentioning some cards that you can automatically include in the deck if you are on a higher budget. Let's get started with the utility and value creatures. These cards just make the deck work. They create value by drawing us cards, creating treasures, interacting with opponents' creatures. Let's get started. Charming Scoundrel. We're starting off strong. It's a 2 mana, 1/1 haste creature, and whenever she enters the battlefield, we get to choose one of 3 fantastic options. We can loot, meaning discard a card, then draw a card. Fantastic to generate some card advantage. We can create a treasure token, which is what you'll be using most of the time. And we also have the option to create a wicked roll token and attach it to a creature we control, meaning the creature will get +1/1. Whenever the token leaves the battlefield, each opponent will lose 1 life. With the Jolly Balloon Man, for 1 mana, you can just copy this, the balloon will enter, you will get to choose one of these 3 options and generate a ton of value that way. Loyal Warhound. Whenever this 2-drop dog enters the battlefield, it checks if any opponent controls more lands than we do. If they do, we get to search our library for a basic plains card and put it into play tapped. Just dropping this on turn 2 is fantastic. Since we are in Boros, we don't play any land acceleration. Most of the time, an opponent will have more lands than us and we will be able to just ramp and filter the basics out of our deck. With the Jolly Balloon Man on the field, you can just create a copy of this, the ETB will trigger again, and we will be able to get a ton of our planes from the deck onto the battlefield. One of my personal favorite cards of all time is Marvin the Murderous Mimic. He's a 2-drop 2/2 artifact creature, and he has the activated abilities of all other creatures we control. We do play some cards with activated abilities, but the main purpose is just when we control the Jolly Balloon Man, we can just play Marvin, and Marvin will function as a second copy of our commander, allowing us to generate even more balloon tokens. Marvin is just a fantastic card in general. Spirited Companion, really simple value card. Whenever it enters the battlefield, we get to draw a card. So basically replaces itself when we play it, and whenever we create a copy, we just get to draw a card. Pretty solid. Combat Celebrant. A 3 mana, 4/1 creature. Whenever it attacks, we get to exert it. Exert means we don't get to untap it at the beginning of our next untap step. When we do attack with this and decide to exert it, we get to untap all creatures we control and we get an additional combat phase after this one. Sadly, since our commander's ability can only be used on sorcery speed, we can't stack infinite combat phases with this. You play this, create a balloon copy of it, attack with it, exert, untap the Jolly Balloon Man and get an additional combat phase. So we can just generate a ton of value or just swing with the creatures we have. After the second combat phase, we do get an extra activation with the Jolly Balloon Man in our second main phase. If you do manage to attack with the original creature and a balloon copy at the same time and both exert them, you will get 2 additional combat phases. The combat phases do stack. You just only get your second main phase after the final combat phase has ended. Duergar Hedgemage, a really hard name to pronounce. Whenever this 3-drop enters the battlefield, it checks if we have 2 or more mountains or 2 or more plains. If we do have 2 or more mountains, we get to destroy target artifact. If we do have 2 or more plains, we get to destroy target enchantment. If we have both, we can do both options. It is artifact and enchantment removal on a creature body, which means we can create a balloon copy out of it and destroy even more artifacts and enchantments. Don't sleep on this card, it's actually really good in this deck. You will always have targets to destroy. Another simple value creature is Inspiring Overseer. It's a 3 mana 2/1 flyer. Whenever it enters the battlefield, we get to gain 1 life and draw a card. Classic card, Mentor of the Meek. Whenever a creature with power 2 or less enters the battlefield, we can pay 1 generic mana to draw a card. Since all of our balloon tokens are just 1/1 copies of creatures, they will always trigger Mentor of the Meek. We can even copy Mentor of the Meek and start pulling some shenanigans off with that. In Boros colors, we really need good card draw, and Mentor of the Meek solves that problem. Patron of the Arts. Whenever it enters the battlefield, we get to create a treasure token. We also get to create a treasure token whenever it dies, which has fantastic synergy with the balloon tokens. When you create a balloon copy of this, you get a treasure token. At the end of turn, the balloon has to be sacrificed, and we also get a treasure token. 2 treasure tokens for just activating our commander once. Pretty good deal. Pretty similar card. Plundering Barbarian. Whenever it enters a battlefield, we get to choose one of 2 options. We can generate a treasure token, or we get to destroy target artifact. Both are fantastic options, and you can just decide what to pick depending on the board state and what you need at that time in the game. Rumor Gatherer. As mentioned before, since we are in Boros, we really need card draw. She has a really simple ability. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under our control, we get to scry 1. Pretty solid. If it's the second time this ability resolved this turn, we also get to draw a card. Pretty simple card, but very good. Skyclave Apparition. Fantastic removal on a creature body. Whenever Skyclave Apparition enters the battlefield, we get to exile a non-land permanent with mana cost 4 or less, which is most cards in Magic. When Skyclave Apparition leaves the battlefield, the controller of the card we exiled gets to create an XX Spirit token. X being the mana cost of the permanent we exiled with Skyclave Apparition. It's a really fantastic removal piece, even without copying it. They don't get the card back, they don't get to draw cards, they just get a useless Spirit token. If you're able to create balloon copies of this creature, you can just keep exiling opponent's stuff. Village Bellringer, the first combo piece in this deck. It's a 3 mana 1/4 body with flesh, and whenever he enters the battlefield, we get to untap all creatures we control. Yeah, you can see where we're going with this. You can just copy this with Jolly Balloon Man. Balloon enters the battlefield, untap Jolly Balloon Man, do it again, just keep repeating the cycle, and you can create a ton of Village Bellringers. If you have just one creature that can also generate mana by tapping it, like just a simple mana dork for example, it also gets untapped, and this way we can pay for the Jolly Balloon Man's ability, netting us an infinite creature combo. I will be going more in depth in this in the combo section in the end of the video. Argus Core Eternal Soldier. This is one of the best creatures in the deck. Whenever this creature becomes a target of an ability that targets only this creature, let's say the Jolly Balloon Man's copy ability for example, we're allowed to pay 2 mana. When we do, we get to copy that ability on each other creature we control. So basically, for just activating the Jolly Balloon Man once, targeting this creature, we get a balloon copy of each creature we control, which is absolutely insane value. Urta Joe, another one of the combo pieces in our deck. Whenever it enters the battlefield, we get to create a 1/1 mercenary token. We do run cards like Impact Tremor, so every token created is fantastic. Whenever we activate an ability that targets a creature or a player, we get to copy it. Which means whenever we activate the Jolly Balloon Man's ability, we get to copy the ability and get a second balloon token of something. Fantastic card. More in the combo section in the end of the video. Flametongue Kavu, 4 mana for a 4/2. Whenever it enters the battlefield, we get to deal 4 damage to target creature. 4 damage is a magic number and will destroy most creatures. Whenever we create a balloon copy, we also get to ping 4 damage to a creature. Removal on a stick. Probably the most beautiful card ever printed is Restoration Angel. Whenever it enters the battlefield, we get to blink a creature, meaning we exile it and instantly return it under our control. With the Jolly Balloon Man, we can just target Restoration Angel, The balloon copy enters, we get to untap something, untap the Jolly Balloon Man. For 1 mana, we can create a balloon again. So as long as we have the mana, we can just keep creating balloons. We get all the ETB triggers on things like Impact Tremors, and we can swing with all the 1/1 flying balloon creatures. We also use Restoration Angel in some of our combos. Rose Room Treasurer. Before making this deck, I've never even heard of this card. It's a 4-drop creature, and whenever another creature enters the battlefield under our control, for the first time, we get to create a treasure token. Second time the ability resolves, we also get to create a treasure token. If we have more creatures entering the battlefield after the first and the second trigger, we will get a different trigger. We will get the ability to pay X. When we do, this creature will deal X damage to any target. Just generating the treasures would have already made for a fantastic card, since we will be creating a ton of tokens, and the ability to pay X to deal X damage to anything acts as a great removal option. You knew it was going to be in here, probably one of the best targets to make a balloon copy of, Solemn Simulacrum. Whenever it enters the battlefield, we get to search our library for a basic land card and put it into play tapped. Whenever it dies, we get to draw a card. The value on this is just insane. Solomon itself is one of the best value creatures there is, but once you start making balloon copies out of it, it's just absolutely ridiculous. Just 1 mana, tapping your commander, and you get to search your library for a basic land card and get to draw a card. Insane. Sparring Mummy, another combo piece, acts in the same way as Restoration Angel. Whenever it enters the battlefield, we get to untap target creature. So as long as we have mana, for 1 mana, we can just keep making balloon copies out of this dude. Whenever they enter, we untap our commander, pay 1 mana, create a copy again, get a balloon, untap our commander, just giving us a ton of balloons, or winning us the game with an infinite combo. More on that later. Karmic Guide, reanimation on a stick. For 5 mana, we get a 2/2 flyer with protection from black. Whenever it enters the battlefield, we get to return a creature from our graveyard to the battlefield. No downsides. If the game goes on longer, some of your creatures will be destroyed and be in the graveyard. With Karmic Guide, you just get a reanimation spell. For just 1 mana, you can create a balloon copy out of this and just reanimate any creature. Really similar to Karmic Guide, Sun Titan. 6 mana, 6/6 Vigilance Body. Whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, we get to return a permanent card with mana value 3 or less from our graveyard to the battlefield. One of the best value cards ever already, but if we create a balloon copy out of this, the balloon will enter the battlefield, trigger Sun Titan. You can attack with the balloon since it has haste, trigger Sun Titan, and just reanimate 2 things of mana value 3 or less. Absolutely crazy value. Luminate Primordial. Whenever it enters the battlefield, for each opponent, we get to select a creature they control and exile it. The opponents will gain life equal to the creature's power, but life doesn't really matter in a game of Commander anyways. This card is just fantastic value. Not just 1 creature, but 1 creature for each opponent. Just imagine creating some balloons with this effect. Last up in the value section is Meteor Golem. 7 mana, whenever it enters the battlefield, we get to destroy target non-land permanent. You have a problem on the board, just create a balloon copy of Meteor Golem and the problem will be solved. Next up, we have the finishers and the threats. These are the cards that will actually win us the game. Probably one of the best cards in the deck. Impact Tremors. 2 mana enchantment, really simple. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under our control, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. As you know by now, we will be making a ton of balloons. Every balloon will deal 1 damage to each opponent, keeping the entire table at a really low life total, just so whittling them down slowly. Later on in this section, you will see we play a ton of creatures that actually generate creature tokens whenever they enter, and the value on Impact Tremors is just insane. Shocking Sharpshooter, one of the new Darkier cards. It's really similar to Impact Tremors. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under our control, we get to deal 1 damage to target opponent. Not as good as Impact Tremors since it doesn't deal damage to each opponent, just 1, but it's still a very solid card that can win you games. Blade Splicer. It's a 3 mana, 1/1 body. Whenever it enters the battlefield, we get a 3/3 Golem. She also has a passive ability that grants all her golems first strike. If you do decide to create a balloon copy of Blade Splicer, it will enter with another 3/3 golem. The balloon will have to be sacrificed in the end step, but the golem just stays around. Creatures that generate tokens whenever they enter the battlefield are absolutely insane with the Jolly Balloon Man. Molten Gatekeeper, really similar to Impact Tremors. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under our control, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. It also has the inert mechanic for just 1 red mana, so when it is in your graveyard, you can pay 1 red mana, returns to the battlefield with haste. You can spawn a ton of creatures, do its sting, just do a ton of damage to everything. Due to inert, in the end step, when you unearted it, it will be exiled. It's a real value piece, a game ender for sure. With Jolly Balloon Man, you can decide to copy this, it will trigger itself, and any other creature that enters will just deal 2 damage to each opponent. It gets crazy with the copies. Another insane card, Witty Roastmaster. Same effect as the previous ones. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, you deal 1 damage to each opponent. Yeah, you can see where we're going with this deck, right? Just generating a ton of balloons, a ton of creature tokens, and dealing a ton of damage to opponents. Elturel Survivors. It's a 4 mana, 0/4 body with Trample and Myriad. Myriad means whenever you attack an opponent with this, you also generate a copy for each opponent you didn't decide to attack. The copy is tapped and attacking the other opponents. So generating a ton of token copies of itself. Whenever it attacks, it gets plus X0, where X is the number of lands the defending player controls. Later on in the game, when people have a ton of lands, this will be a really high number, and since it has Trample, it will deal a ton of damage. The Jolly Balloon Man has insane synergy with Myriad cards. You can just copy this creature, have a 1/1 balloon with all of this card's effect, attack with the balloon, you'll create copies, will get plus X0 with Trample, and just swing at all opponents at once. You will get a ton of ETB triggers, since the Myriad will also create tokens. The balloons will just deal a ton of damage. Awesome inclusion in the deck. Fanatic of Mogis. 4 mana for a 4/2 body. Whenever it enters the battlefield, it deals damage to each opponent equal to your devotion to red. Devotion to red means every red pip in mana colors you have on permanents you control. So baseline, it will always deal 1 damage, since Fanatic of Mogis has 1 red pip in the mana cost. If you do have more devotion, like let's say 5, it will enter the battlefield, deal 5 to everyone, create a balloon copy, deal 5 to everyone again. The value on this is also crazy. Gold Knight Commander, a card that actually buffs our balloon tokens. So it's a 4 mana creature. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under our control, all our creatures will get plus 1/1 until the end of turn. We do play a ton of token generators in this deck, and also every balloon we create will give all other creatures plus 1/1 until the end of turn. It's like a budget version of Qatar's Crusade. The balloon tokens do have haste and flying, so with this card on the field, actually creating tokens and growing the balloons might threaten lethal on an opponent. Main way we will win in this deck is by burning opponents down with all of the burn effects we play, but this card actually promotes swinging with the balloon tokens and doing damage that way. Hellrider, a 4 mana haste creature. Whenever a creature we control attacks, we deal 1 damage to the defending player. If you can create a balloon copy of Hellrider, every attacking creature will deal 2 damage to the defending opponent, and with the amount of tokens we generate, it's just a fantastic win con. I remember back in original Innistrad when Hellrider was legal in Standard, he was an absolute powerhouse of a game finisher. I really love this card. Hero of Bladehold. It's a 4 mana card with Battlecry. Whenever this card attacks, every other attacking creature we control will get plus 1/0 until the end of turn. She has a bonus effect whenever she attacks. We also get to create 2 1/1 creature tokens tapped and attacking. So she buffs our balloons and all the creature tokens we control, and she also generates creature tokens. If you manage to copy this with Jolly Balloon Man and attack with 2 Heroes of Bladeholds, you will get 4 tokens and you will get 2 Battlecry triggers, resulting in a ton of damage. Boss's Chauffeur. It's a 5 mana 0/0 creature and enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter for every other creature we control. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield with this on the field, it will also get a +1/1 counter. When this creature dies, we get 1/1 tokens equal to the amount of counters this creature had on it on the moment it died. So usually this will be a ton of tokens. If you create a balloon copy of this creature, it will function in exactly the same way as the original card. The 1/1 balloon enters, checks the amount of creatures you control, gets that many counters. Whenever the balloon dies, which it will, you get that many 1/1 tokens. Absolutely ridiculous. Coercive Recruiter. When it or another pirate enters the battlefield under our control, we get to pick a creature an opponent controls and we gain control of it until the end of turn. When Coercive Recruiter is on the battlefield and we decide to copy it with the Jolly Balloon Man, the balloon will enter and will trigger the ETB effect, allowing us to steal a creature. The original Coercive Recruiter will also trigger. In itself, this is already an awesome target to create balloon copies with, but it gets even better. I will talk more about this in the combo section. Another fantastic creature token generator is Emrakul's Hatcher. Whenever it enters the battlefield, it enters with 3 0/1 Eldrazi tokens which have the ability that they can be sacrificed to generate 1 colorless mana. So when we play this, we get 4 creatures entering the battlefield, and we can generate some mana by sacrificing the creatures. If we create a balloon copy out of this, we also get the 3 Eldrazi's that can be sacrificed for mana. Crazy value once again. Reverend Hoplite, another devotion card. Whenever this enters the battlefield, we get to create X 1/1 soldier tokens equal to our devotion to white. Baseline, this will generate a 1/1 soldier token together with it since it has 1 devotion to white itself, but most of the time we will have some permanents around and will generate an absolute insane amount of tokens. Create a balloon copy out of this and create even more tokens. Crazy value. For 5 mana, we have Siege Gang Commander. Whenever it enters the battlefield, we get 3 1/1 red goblin tokens. For 2 mana, this creature allows us to sacrifice a goblin and deal 2 damage to any target. We mainly play it for the tokens it generates, but the ability might come in handy to remove something you don't want on the board. It's just another fantastic token generator really. For playing this, you get 4 creatures entering the battlefield. Zealous Conscripts. Very similar to Coercive Recruiter, this haste creature, whenever it enters the battlefield, allows us to gain control of a creature an opponent controls. We get to untap it, and we can even swing with it. When you copy this with Jolly Balloon Man, you just get to steal another creature. It can also be used in another way. When this is on the battlefield and we target it with Jolly Balloon Man, we get a balloon copy of Zealous Conscripts. Enter the battlefield trigger goes on the stack, and we can target our own Jolly Balloon Man to untap it. For 1 mana, can create a copy again, untap him again, cycle repeats, and we can generate as many 1/1 balloon tokens that are copies of Zealous Conscripts as we want, as long as we have the 1 mana per copy to pay. This will generate a ton of ETB triggers and a ton of balloons to swing with. Later on in the video, you will also see how we use Zealous Conscripts in our combos. Fear of Burning Alive. Whenever it enters the battlefield, it deals 4 damage to each opponent. Just that in itself, creating balloon copies out of this will deal a ton of damage to the entire table. And it even has a bonus effect. When we have Delirium active, meaning we have 4 or more different card types in our graveyard, whenever a source deals non-combat damage to a player, for example, Fear of Burning Alive entering the battlefield itself, we also get to deal that much damage to a creature that player controls. When this enters and you do have Delirium active by having multiple card types in your graveyard, you get to deal a ton of damage to the entire table and remove some creatures. Creating balloon copies out of this is insane. This is basically the same card, but worse. Red Dragon, whenever it enters the battlefield, we get to deal 4 damage to the entire table. Make some balloons out of this. Inferno Titan. You knew he was gonna be here since we also play Sun Titan. Whenever Inferno Titan enters the battlefield or attacks, we get to ping 3 damage divided as we want among any targets. Create a balloon copy out of this. The balloon enters, we get to ping 3. The balloon attacks, we also get to ping 3. Fantastic game finisher. Furbolg Flutist. Before making this deck, I had no idea it existed, and it is a real powerhouse. Whenever it enters the battlefield, we get to gain control of a creature an opponent controls. We get to untap it, it gains haste, and it gains Myriad until the end of turn, meaning when we attack with it, it will copy to each other opponent. This in itself is already really good. With this card, Jolly Balloon Man gives us a couple of options. We can choose to copy this card, have another ETB trigger, and steal another creature and grant it Myriad. We can also choose to just create a copy with Jolly Balloon Man out of the creature we just stole with Myriad. This will result in us having 2 creatures with Myriad we are able to swing with. Just having a total of 6 copies of a creature swinging at opponents. Myriad is just so good in this deck, it's insane. Molten Primordial, another steel card. When it enters the battlefield, for each opponent we get to pick a creature they control. We gain control of it until the end of turn, untap it, gains haste, and we can swing with it. When we make a balloon copy out of this, the 1/1 balloon will also steal 1 creature of each opponent, and we will be able to swing with it. Mere Battlesphere. Whenever it enters the battlefield, we also get 4 1/1 Mere Artifact creature tokens. 1 card, 5 bodies. When you play this and make a balloon copy, you will get a total of 10 creatures entering the battlefield for 8 mana. Whenever this creature attacks, we can also tap Mirror to boost its power, and it will also deal X damage equal to the amount of Mirror we tap to the defending player it is attacking. Roiling Hamsphere. It's a 7-drop creature, and it gets +1/1 for every hamster we control. Whenever the Hamsphere attacks, we get 3 1/1 hamster creature tokens. Whenever it attacks, we also get to deal X damage to any target where X is the amount of hamsters we control. Fantastic creature generator and a fantastic target to create balloons out of. Last creature in this section is Threefold Thunder Hulk. Whenever it enters the battlefield, it enters with 3+1/1 counters on it. When it enters or attacks, we get to generate 1 creature tokens equal to its power. When we create a balloon copy out of this, the balloons have a base stat line of 1/1. They will enter with 3+1/1 counters on it, so we can swing with a 4/4 flying haste balloon. And since it enters with 4 power, we get to generate 4 tokens when it enters, and when we attack with it, we also get to generate 4 tokens. You will end up generating a ton of tokens with this card. Like this video, subscribe to the channel and turn on the bell notification so you get notified when I upload new videos. Fun fact, I always include a link to the decklist on Moxfield in the description of the video, so make sure to check that out if you want the decklist. For mana rocks and acceleration, we run the following cards: Sol Ring, Arcane Signet, Boros Signet, the Boros Talisman, both Goldmere and Ironmere. These are 2 artifact creatures that can just be tapped for mana, so they function as mana dorks, and we also use them in our combos. More on that in the combo section. Ornithopter of Paradise, another artifact creature that can also be tapped for mana, also used in our combos. And last up, Idol of Oblivion, a 2 mana artifact that we can just tap to draw a card whenever we created a token that turn. We will always be creating balloons, so you will always be able to use this. As you know by now, the most important section of any deck, the interaction spells, because you can't win the game if you lose the game. As in any white deck that I play, I will always include these 2 cards: Swords to Plowshares and Path to Exile. 1 mana, you get to exile a creature. These are the most efficient cards ever printed in Magic. Play your removal. Exorcise. 2 mana and we get to exile target artifact, enchantment or creature with power 4 or greater. Fantastic card. Swiftfoot Boots. Not really an interaction spell, but a protection spell. Main purpose is just equipping this on our commander and making him hexproof, so we can actually dodge spot removal. Jolly Balloon Man is a fantastic card, but this means people will try to remove it. Chaos Warp lets us deal with any permanent, even lands. The opponent that controlled the permanent we destroyed gets to flip cards off the top of their library until they reveal a permanent card and they get to put it into play. Later on in the game, we can even target our own lands, for example, just to do a Hail Mary and get a value permanent on the board. Don't be using this card on 1/1 tokens, use it on actual threats. Generous Gift, another 3 mana card that lets us deal with any permanent. They will get a 3/3 elephant, but that will not be relevant anyways. Last card in the interaction section is Touch the Spirit Realm. For 3 mana, we get a card that functions like Oblivion Ring. When this enchantment enters the battlefield, we get to exile target non-land permanent. For as long as this stays on the battlefield, the permanent stays exiled. For 2 mana, we can also channel this card, meaning discarding it and activating the channel effect, allowing us to blink a creature. You can use this to dodge removal targeted on your creatures or board wipes, for example, or you can use this to double up on ETB effects. For example, you have Solemn Simulacrum on the battlefield, you can just channel this card, blink it, and get another basic land. Let's get into the mana base of this deck. Since we are on a 25 euro budget, it is nothing fancy. A really weird land in this deck you probably weren't expecting is Mishra's Factory. Taps for colorless, and for 1 mana we can animate it into a 2/2 creature. Now why do we play this? We'll talk about this in the combo section later in the video. We actually use it as a combo piece. We play a command tower, 1 of the Scry lands, 1 filter land, 16 plains, and 16 mountains. We are on a budget, so we do play a ton of basics, which is perfectly fine in a 2-color deck, honestly. Before we get into the combo section of this video, are there any cards that I missed, or cards that you would include in a Jolly Balloon Man deck? If there are, leave them in the comments below, and let's get the discussion started. So how do we actually combo in a 25 euro budget deck? Well, the first and most simple combo line is just having the Jolly Balloon Man, Village Bellringer, and 1 creature that you can tap for mana on the field. This is also the reason why we play Mishra's Factory. If you can just animate this for 1 mana, it is a creature that you can also tap for mana, since it is also a land. So this functions as a creature you can tap for mana when animated. Mana generating creature on the field, Village Bellringer on the field, Jolly Balloon Man on the field. You tap the mana creature to pay for the activation cost of Jolly Balloon Man. Activate him, target Village Bellringer and create a balloon copy out of him. Balloon enters, we get to untap all creatures we control. Untap the mana dork, untap Jolly Balloon Man, tap the mana dork again, tap Jolly Balloon Man again, rinse and repeat. This way you get infinite balloons entering the battlefield, infinite Balloon Man activations, and infinite untaps on your creatures. So this way you can actually lethal your opponents with an army of infinite flying balloons. This is a real meme deck. For the second combo line, you need the following. One creature that generates mana by tapping it on the battlefield. You need the Jolly Balloon Man, Eartha Joe on the battlefield, and you need a creature that untaps the Jolly Balloon Man on ETB. This can be any of the following creatures. So, once again, you start with tapping your mana dork for 1 mana, paying for the cost of Jolly Balloon Man's ability. Tap Jolly Balloon Man and you target the creature that untaps on ETB. Eartha Joe triggers, so this allows us to double up on the ability of Jolly Balloon Man. We will target the untapper once again. The 2 balloons enter, we get to untap 2 creatures. We will untap the mana dork, and we will untap Jolly Balloon Man. Tap the mana dork again, tap Jolly Balloon Man again, rinse and repeat. Once again, you will get infinite ETB triggers and infinite 1/1 flying balloons. Since for this deck we are on a hyper budget of 25 euros, I did decide to do a small upgrade section, mentioning cards you can invest in if you do have the money, to just instantly upgrade this deck. Skull Clamp. This awesome 1 mana equipment only costs 1 to equip and gives the equipped creature +1/-1. Whenever the equipped creature dies, we get to draw 2 cards. Just in your second main phase, after you attacked with your balloons, you can just Skull Clamp them, they will die, which they would have done anyways, and get to draw 2 cards. As you can imagine, this provides insane card draw. A Gate Instigator, probably my favorite damage pinger aside from Impact Tremors. It's a 2-drop creature. Whenever a creature enters, we get to ping 1 damage to each opponent. It also has the Offspring mechanic. So if we play it, we can also pay the Offspring and we will get 2 copies of this. Yeah, with Jolly Balloon Man, we can just create even more copies and every creature entering will deal a ton of damage to each opponent. Since we do play combos, we can play Imperial Recruiter and Recruiter of the Guard. These are 2 simple creatures. You can copy them with Jolly Balloon Man to have more ETB triggers, tutor more of your deck, but these are just ways to more consistently pull off our combo. In this version, we don't have ways to tutor up any of the combo pieces and we just have to hope and draw them. With more tutors, you get more consistency. Obviously, Mondrak, the best token doubler there is. Whenever a token would be created under our control, we just get twice that many instead. If we do create a balloon copy of an awesome ETB creature, we will get a second one and double up on the value. Mondrak is just an insane card, but it is pricey. Porphyros, God of the Forge. This is like Impact Tremors, but way better. It's an indestructible enchantment creature. If you have enough devotion, this will be a creature and you can swing with him. Also has Fire Breathing for 3 mana. We can give all our creatures +1/0 until the end of turn, pumping our balloons if you want to. But the best part about this card is whenever a creature enters the battlefield under our control, it deals 2 damage to each opponent. Insane. And last up, a card I'd also include in Jolly Balloon Man is War Leader's Skull. It's a 3 mana enchantment, gives all our creatures +1/1, so our balloons will be 2/2s. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under our control, we get to deal 1 damage to each opponent. That's it for my hyper budget Jolly Balloon Man deck. If you just want a fun deck to play with your friends for the price of 1 collector booster, this is the deck for you. Honestly, it's way stronger than it looks and it shouldn't be this strong for just 25 euros. And let's be honest, it's pretty cool playing a clown card as a commander and swinging at opponents with balloon tokens. You can even draw some of your own balloon tokens to make it even more fun. Share this video with your entire family, hit the like button, hit subscribe and hit the bell icon so you get notified when I upload new videos. Thanks for watching and I will see you in the next one. Peace.